Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. This show is brought to you by One Football app and I'm going to try and explain shape. We're going to try and keep it as simple as possible. On today's show, I'm going to try and do something ambitious. I'm going to try and explain shape in the simplest way I can, and I hope it makes sense. Because I've done a few videos on shape that go into a lot of detail, and I want to keep this really short. Okay, essentially, in order for you to understand shape, you need to understand there are two types of mentality in the game. There's team mentality and individual mentality. Understand that, half the battle is done. When you go to the tactical creator, you can choose different team mentalities, right? You can adjust these from the top. But individuals in a team also have individual mentality. You find that out by going to play instructions and edit instructions. So if you come to this player and you edit his instructions, you'll see he's on a different mentality from the rest of the team. How does this affect your team? How does this affect the way you create your tactics? This is where it's very important to understand what shape does. Shape redistributes mentality in a team. So while you may set control highly structured for the whole team, not everybody in the team is going to be on that mentality. Defenders, for example, they might be on defend duty, but their mentality is nowhere near control. They'll probably be somewhere near normal. This creates what I like to call divergence. Divergence in mentality. Now, what does mentality do exactly? Mentality isn't just simply risk-taking. I mean, this is the simplest way to explain it. However, it involves decision-making when a player positions himself, takes part in transitions, closing down, passing, the way he makes his passes, the way the team operates with and the tempo of the team. So mentality affects all these kind of things. It also affects their appetite for risk. Is the player going to close down more? For example, is he going to take a bit more of a risk when he decides to close down? On higher mentalities, a team might do that. But the interesting thing here is, if you're playing on lower mentality settings, but you play on highly structured, your players' individual mentalities can be quite different. So this is something that we need to understand. So if you have a wing back here on attack, and you have a wing back here on defend, and you wanted to play it on highly structured, you will notice that the wing back on attack has a very high mentality, bordering almost on attacking mentality when the team is already only set on control. So this means that player is more inclined to take risks. That player is going to position himself slightly further forward when your team has the ball, as opposed to another player in the team. Highly structured and highly structured shapes tend to create this divergence in mentality across the team. When you play on very fluid settings, that divergence is reduced. So a team is more likely to behave as a unit when they move up and down the pitch. On highly structured shapes, a team is more likely to behave in parts. So those players who have attacking duties, they may bomb off earlier. There may be more gaps on the pitch as a result of their early movement and the initial higher positioning, which puts a higher burden on the individuals on attack duties bombarding into attack to do something with the ball on their own, because they're going to wait slightly longer for support to come in and help them out. Whereas on very fluid shapes, because the mentality gaps aren't so great, the team seems to move together as a unit across the pitch. So they're always going to have players close by. Strikers are going to be on a lower mentality on very fluid as well, because very fluid shapes tends to reduce the mentality of those guys on attacking to bring them more in line with the team. So the team behaves as a unit going up the pitch. Here we have a poacher who's playing in a counter highly structured system, and then we have the same poacher playing in a counter very fluid system. Notice how his mentality seems to be very different in both systems. In a counter highly structured system, the poacher is probably going to be on his own more. He's going to take more risks. He's further forward. He's got a higher risk appetite, as opposed to a poacher playing on a counter very fluid system. This poacher's mentality is more closely in tune with the players on support duty. The gaps between him and the support players may not be as far as a poacher who's on a highly structured system. One other thing to bear in mind is that two roles will have different mentality settings depending on the duty that you choose. Mentality and shape usually combine to give you kind of a risk profile in the game because of the way mentality gets split across the team. And the thing here to bear in mind is this: on lower mentality settings, naturally it will be your team is going to be taking lower risk. But why do I think that contain very fluid is more riskier than contain highly structured? Now, that's possibly because on contain very fluid, most of your players are staying back. Nobody is bombing forward. So you basically have all backs to the wall. You are actually playing a more riskier game by not giving yourself an outlet to move the ball out, which is the reason why I rate contain very fluid as more riskier than contain highly structured. Contain highly structured is definitely lower in risk for me because there is still an outlet. You still have a few players on attack duty who are willing to bomb forward. Whereas on contain very fluid, the attacking duties are going to be lower in mentality. This means that there's less likelihood of you getting out and trying to score a goal. Now, this has important implications for when we are trying to create tactics. When it comes to choosing what kind of shape setting, there's a lot of bad advice out there. A lot of people, I've read a lot of comments out there that say that only good teams should use very fluid, poor teams should use highly structured. That's very, very bad advice. Any team can use any shape. That's the first thing. You just need to understand what shape does to your tactics. That's all. On structured shapes, you'll see fast transitions. On flexible shapes, you'll see balanced transitions. On fluid shapes, you'll see transitions that are a bit slow, but you see the whole team moving up as one and moving down as one. So these are things that you need to understand. When you want a team to behave as a unit, you choose fluid or very fluid. When you want to see a team take transitions and be fast on the break, use highly structured or structured shapes. When you're not sure, stick to flexible. That's as simple as you can get. Now, what about this thing called creative freedom in a tactic? Does it mean that very fluid teams require high creativity or high decision making in your players? They need high technical skill to pull it off? No, it does not mean that. See, the thing here that most people don't understand is this. You got to look at lower league teams. Now, lower league teams, they may have low decision making. Therefore, when they hit the pitch, they may be thinking that there are only 4 possible outcomes to a decision on the pitch. Now, what you want to do is you want to tell them, hey guys, think a bit wider, think outside the box. So now you're telling them, think about 5 or 6. Chances are, you see, the 4 might be average decisions. Maybe the 5th or the 6th decision might be a good one. So here you're telling the team to expand their thought processes so they can come up with more options. So when you're playing with a lower league team, sometimes you want teams to try something more with the ball. When you have a good team, you might want to tell them, hang on a minute, your decision making is good. Out of the 10 decisions you normally make, usually 8 of them are really good, but I don't want you to spend the whole day thinking about the best possible outcome you can come up with. Why don't you just pick 2? Because chances are even those 2 are going to be good. So with good teams, sometimes you don't need them to have high decision making. You don't need to give them a lot of creative freedom. Sometimes you just give them structured and they're off. Because you have to remember, in a highly structured or structured shape setting, that one individual player who's bombing off, if he's good enough, he might be able to draw more players out of position on his own. Whereas for a weaker team, if you play on a structured shape, he might bomb off and then he might need support because he's not good enough to break past the other players. So in that particular case, maybe a fluid shape would suit the team a bit better. So when you're deciding on the shape that you have in your tactic, you first want to be looking at the formation you're using and asking yourself, is there a possibility these guys need some support? Are my players the sort, are they good enough on their own to break past teams? Now, sometimes I play on structured with roam from position because I want my team, I know my players who are in attacking duties further up the pitch, they are pretty good on the ball, so they might be able to draw players away from them on their own. And this may open up pockets of space for my team to exploit. On very fluid settings, I might require more players to be involved in a transition because A, I might want to throw more bodies into attack, or B, I might need more players supporting the ball carrier, for example. So these are things that you need to ask yourself. Shape, roles, and duties work together to give you styles in football. So if you're using a structured shape with your tactic, think about the roles and duties that you're using, because this is going to influence your transitions. In the final third, if you have more attacking duties, chances are these guys are going to bomb off. They might need technical skills. They might need acceleration to get away from players. You could use them to attack space, draw teams around, create space for yourself, because there's a lot more space to explore. On fluid settings, your team is going to be moving up as a unit. You may want to think whether your team has good first touch, whether they have good composure, because they're all going to be working together as a unit trying to break a team down. So structured shapes are very popular for people who want to create counter-attacking systems, right? They want to have fast transitions, and you can do these fast transitions on nearly every mentality. And then when you're looking at fluid shapes, you tend to be moving up as a unit, so they lend themselves to camping systems. So you might want to think about your duties here. If you want to be patient, drawing a team around the pitch, trying to carve out an opening, then you might need your players to have good first touch, composure off the ball, so that they can hold on to the ball in the final third. Ultimately, you still have to think about your defensive lines, because if you're playing a very fluid shape and you have a lot of attacking duties, your defensive line will encourage your players to move up high up the pitch when they don't have the ball. So are you leaving your flanks exposed? This is where you need to think about your duties too. So is there one shape setting that is perfect in the game? I've been asked that question many times before. No. I've even been asked this question by somebody once when he was surprised when I took his tactic, made a few tweaks, and he went, "Oh my God, I didn't know. I thought, my friends would think I can't play football manager if I can't play on a very fluid system." I almost died laughing, because no, that's completely nonsense. That's total nonsense. Okay, you can play on any shape setting. Shape just influences the way your team moves up and down the pitch. So, you can use any kind of a shape setting in a game. What you need to understand is this, and is this the very simplest way you can approach the game? When you use structured shapes, you're committing less players into an attacking transition. When you're using fluid and very fluid shapes, you're committing more players in a transition. So that's the easiest way you can think about it. So if you want to throw more players into attack and you have got support duties, lots of support duties in your team, then when you play on a very fluid setting or a fluid setting, more of your players are going to be involved in their transition, depending again on your mentality. So if your mentality is high and you're playing very fluid, quite a number of your players are going to be looking at the opposing half and going, "Hey, I want to be a part of this transition." Whereas if you're playing on a structured setting, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. So this is where the risk element comes in. So the next time you want to design your tactic, and if you're not sure about what shape setting you want to use, start on flexible. It's the easiest shape setting to get right, because it's very balanced in transitions. And once you've gotten the hang of it and you feel like you want to experiment a bit more, take that same tactic, play it on very fluid, and see how it plays like. This is something that I advise people to do when they're not sure about shape settings. And I always tell them this: go take a very good team, play one tactic, defensive, highly structured. Now take that same tactic, play defensive, very fluid. Step back, take a look at all the transitions, try and note down how they move the ball around. Now change mentality, and then play it on attacking mentality, highly structured, and attacking, very fluid, and then observe again. You will notice that your team plays differently on different shape settings. You get different kinds of styles. You look at transitions differently. So it opens up more possibilities to you when you want to create your tactics. Well, I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions about shape, please look me up on Twitter at Bustthenet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank all my patrons for their continued support of this channel. You make these kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. You guys take care, have a good one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.